So, greetings, this is Kal Kat, the Kal Katster. And here's the transfer. There aren't, obviously there's not going to be a comic book convention this year. There's not going to be a anime, and there's not going to be Comic-Con, obviously. So instead of that, we're going to have an AdamaCon. And so coming soon to AdamaCon, a series of stuff from the legendary failed child star stuff, panels. Where I'll just do some of those. This is a preview sort of thingy. I'm gonna put them on the On Location Cat website only because there's not a lot of stuff there. So we'll have several topics that I haven't worked out yet, but we'll see. We will be discussing shipping and slash fiction. Transformer shipping and slash fiction, of which a lot of the alt Transformers much is. I think that should be one of them. Should write that down. Write that shit down. We will be discussing the 21 stories that were published last year. And Chimera, of course. And so we'll have the first venue at some point will be shipping fiction. Transformers and gender equity. Transformers and gender equity. That's a good title. Let's see. Kindle books. The Cillian Saga. I don't know if we'll get to Vanguards and Canary, but probably. Neri, Vanguards, Space Vanguards. Not the other Vanguards. So Space Time. At some point we will be discussing the Kitty Key. Kitty Key. The inspiration of Martial Sportiest, which is also the stories. Sportiest. We will be discussing, of course, Corrosion. Corrosion wore that in. We'll be discussing failed child star. We will be discussing at some point other things. Failed child star, the Kal Kat story. Some of that. We will be discussing and show X, whatever. I want to do interesting stuff. Let's see what else we have. And of course, Inheritance and some of the others. Starship Chimera, Starship Locations. Nations Ni Chimera. Future projects. AdamaCon. AdamaCon 2020. Anything else might come up. Yeah, I want to make it fun. So yeah, actually, it would have to be social distanced. internet. Yeah, so I wrote down a bunch of things here, and yeah, we gotta discuss that. Yeah, so we'll see what kind of things are going on in that. This is just a preview of the preview for a convention. That's not a convention really because we can't actually have one. I'll be a panelist. I'll be not only the panelist of my own online in Runabout Room here panel. I'll not only be the panelist, I'll be the producer, creator, director, writer, star. And nepotism will be, yes, rampant. Yes. Mainly I will discuss my own stuff, but it's probably relevant information to discuss other stuff as well. Yeah, so this is an intro to that, I guess. Yeah. It's been a very busy 2019 last year, and then half of this year. And we've done a lot, so a whole lot. Mark's Cards and I put out that book series. And mainly I did. We got Starship Chimera done and put it out in September. It was finally finished. Yeah, so yeah, 21 books and Chimera, and all the covers were done and everything. I did them. Yeah, so that was cool. And then well, on this, we said afterward we were gonna do these other films, and we did. And I did. I said, I'm going to do Corrosion. So the next thing I'm going to do is the longest fanfic ever done in Transformers. I'm going to tackle that as a 7-part miniseries. I'm going to do that. And I just finished that. So it's really cool. So there's a lot of stuff going on. Starship Locations will be on to play live streaming. Well, it's not technically streaming. It's just live. So, yeah. Sure. So, yeah, it's been an exciting year and a half. Well, since last year, it's only been a year, but yeah, there were some other church-related things which we don't talk about that much, which will not be included in the panel just because there's no video of that. But all of that is in temporary hiatus while the lockdown's going on. The cat wants to come in. I'm not going to let her in. Yeah, so, yeah. Slash Fiction and Transformers panel. I just recently released a Talking Pointless on the other channel where I talked mainly about the finishing the Corrosion movie. I will talk more about that, but I will talk more about it in terms of the story and its like stuff. Is there SJW elements in it? Oh yeah, but there always are. Social justice. There are woke elements. Yes, there. All my stories are like that. I'm surprised there aren't more trolls that are mad because my stories are about that. Yeah. Probably one of the last conservative mid-range feminists males out there that I've heard of. It's actually like, oh yeah, I would totally like yeah, I've kind of always been that way. I've always been for the female empowerment since before they called it something like, gave it a prerogative. It's like, I've always been for that. I've always been for the strong female characters and stories and fiction and stuff as well. Always wanted that. The idea that they're just as powerful or more powerful than the men, even in some cases. The fictional characters such as like the Indian Queen who actually could like totally jack up everything if she wanted to, that kind of thing. If she really wanted to, the Regent could like destroy everybody. The female Q who could control Q, and somehow Guinan who can control Q as well. Not really sure what that was with Guinan. I'm thinking ex-wife. That's what I'm thinking. They were married. That's what it was. But yeah, but yeah, the more the merrier. It's like I was one of the proponents of the DS9 finale that said, why didn't Kira get the chance to kick Kai Wynn's butt? She should have totally. She should have got the chance to. You know she wanted to. Stuff like that. Oh no. Anyway, so yeah, it's just a little preview thing here. Probably won't discuss too much of that other stuff. Picard show or whatever. Yeah. I could discuss Star Trek. I guess I'll add something about Star Trek. The current, even though, yeah, I'm not an expert on this, but the current state of Star Trek. Of course, Star Wars. But I don't really, I haven't seen The Mandalorian, so mainly it'll be Star Trek. but yeah, Mark's card tonight discussed in here the last Star Wars movie. And the current state of do I know anything from Marvel that I can talk about? Marvel? Question mark? DC? Question mark? Can I talk about some of that? Let's see. Maybe some of it. Stuff that's not going to happen. I'm going to talk about that. Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah, so, yeah. So, yeah, there's a light list of this. AdamaCon. Yep. Corrosion. Failed child star. What failed child star would be is the Kal Kat show. The whole backstory of the whole thing. So local radio, audio recordings, free, made when we were teenagers, up until college age. These are radio-free broadcast thingies, and they were often quite raunchy and twisted, and we can't air any of them now. They had a lot of copyrighted music on them, but yeah, that's where Kal Kat comes from. KTS, Kitty, Key, that thing. Before Kitty Key. KTS, Kal Kat. So yeah, we'll find out what that is. Also, yeah. Also, any manga? I'm talking about anime and manga. I don't have much on that because, I mean, it would be manga. I mean, this would technically be around the same time that, although they flipped them, Fanime and Comic-Con, they flipped them last year. Because they wanted the 25th anniversary to land earlier. The other one, and they actually had Comic-Con before Fanime. Just be different. Which was odd. Yeah, so they flipped them. This year they're not going to do it. So. It turns out that one dude that we kept seeing was actually, or at least one of the dudes we kept seeing from Fanime was actually Mr. Anderson. Not the Matrix guy, but Mr. Anderson. And he goes to all those things. He was there. That's actually who that was. It was a guy that played Garibaldi in the On Location Bacon. We covered Bacon coverage. The bizarre Bacon episode of 2011, I believe it was. The stories were actually in the episode. It was a crossover between the Kal Kat show and the story show. It crossed over. So they were like, he was Garibaldi. And Mr. Story was, Brian Story was a Ghostbuster. They were all in Ghostbusters outfits and stuff. Then he was a sort of a he was the character. He was the guy with the British hat and stuff from Indiana Jones at one point too. He was also he was also He was also, of course, the Blues Brothers. He was both of the Blues Brothers. Him and Drew, Blues Brothers. And the Clint Cowpoke was there. He was following them. Yeah, and for some reason I'm blanking on what their names were, even though I totally should know that. Strebeck or something? And Bud or something like that. But yeah, the Blues Brothers. Not 2000, but the Blues Brothers, like, 2011 spin-off. Because Brian Story could have played the Belushi character. And yeah. Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, that was an interesting bake-on. I'm not going to ramble too much, but we did have a panel with that one. We got to do the Ghost Hunters panel, which turned into a Ghostbusters panel, which was much cooler, I think. So we did do that. But mostly because the panel people like walked out and they didn't show up. So the moderator guy is like, well, can you do the panel? And Mr. Story's like, yeah, I'll do it. So anybody wants to stay in here and watch this guy's panel, oh, okay, go for it. Well, okay. So we talked about ghosts, ghost hunters and stuff. Told spooky stories. Tried to freak each other out. It was funny. But yeah, mostly stories about, ooh, there was a spooky character out in the front yard who was staring and it wasn't there. Like, okay. Mostly it was like creaking like noises and Halloween pranks and stuff. It was a scarecrow Mr. Story had built and put out there. Anyway, so yeah, I did see him recently in December. Yeah, he had a Ghostbusters panel van a Ghostbusters minivan done up to look like the Ecto, sort of the Ecto 3, I guess, from the later 90s version. For the 90s, not the 2016 version, the 90s cartoon. The Extreme Ghostbusters. It looked like the Extreme Ghostbusters. Yeah, extreme. Because everything in the 90s was extreme. You just guess how the 90s became its own thing. But yeah, that's later. This is just an intro to AdamaCon. But yeah. Yeah, shipping fiction. It's kind of funny that I was in that. Mainly Star Trek and Xena shipping fiction panel years ago. And that was interesting. And then there was another one. It was still Fanime when that happened. Yeah, and there were a number of other ones too. There was a Sailor Moon one as well. And the year after that, I went to the same panel, and there was like a lady who was disgusted that I was a man. Like I was in the panel. There were other men there. She's like, well, what are you doing? What are you doing in here? Arg! She got a little mad for some reason. I was like, well, what are you doing in here? I'm here to talk about Xena and Calista, who are clearly a couple. It's really obvious. No, but realistically so. They weren't a couple to turn anybody on. They were just a couple because they were just a couple. But even Calista said that at convention. Well, the actress who played her said that at a convention. So it's canon. It's absolutely canon. Yeah. Another warrior woman thing there. Yeah. Another thing is also canon. Armin Shimmerman played Quark. Said that he modeled his character after Ross Perot. But he thought it might become dated later because nobody would know who that is. But yeah, the politician from the 94, 96, he was 92 in 94. Was modeled after Ross Perot. Not all of the Ferengi, just his character. He totally was. That's why there was that reference with the parachute. Yeah, I have some Star Trek trivia. The Trek Corps people always wonder about that. It's like, doesn't just occur to them he had something to do with it. It was there. Somehow. He's like, yeah, I could have been there. Yeah, some of it, yeah. Some of it. Back in the 90s. College student. Didn't know what I was doing. Especially not writing scripts at the time. I wrote some scripts. But yeah, we've been over that, but I can mention it again. Somewhere the state of Star books and novels and things. So yeah, so this is just an intro. Slash fiction. I won't be discussing other slash fiction that I don't know about. But I do know of the CM who wrote the infamous Deep Space Nine and Next Generation slash fiction. Yes, that is actually one of us. Two of us. Us, actually. And yeah, CM is MC Kim. It's, yeah. It's Kal Kat Marks Cards. Yeah, it's really obvious. And what's funny about that panel thing is saying that years ago is that the second time around is I happened to talk to the panelist lady of the slash fictions, and I mentioned that I had found the archive. So I had found the archive of all of the Mush stories for the All Transformers Mush, and I was like, I let her know. I said, I'm gonna do some video versions of the slash Transformers Mush stories. You've probably heard of those because you mentioned the Mush stories for Star Trek and Xena and other shows, and they have a Transformers one. She was familiar with it. She said, yeah, there was a lot of Springer and Hot Rod and RC and stuff like that. I said, I found some of that, and I'm gonna not only re-download some of it and get permission from them, but I'm also gonna make videos, adaptations of the episodes with my figures. And she says, that's bizarre. You should totally do that. That'd be cool. So now there it is. A year later, there it is. So we'll watch some of it. Yeah. So yeah. So it's out there. Yeah. It's not nearly as slashy as you'd think it is. I mean, it's just like the whole thing about Transformers. I mean, some of it's really no. I didn't use any of the R-rated stuff. That I did not include that. PG-13. It's not the R-rated stuff. It's like, oh, I love you. Oh, I love you too. It's like, yeah, okay. It was like that kind of stuff. But yeah, I will probably go into that a little bit. Gender, because I said gender equity, not gender equality. Yeah. Kindle books, Kitty, Corrosion. If I miss anything, there could always be another convention because it's all live blog. Yeah, so ramble on here about an intro that goes on too long. And I'm not actually going to bring up the changes to channel thing unless somebody asks. Livecasts. And I'll say probably something like, well, I don't know. Yeah. I think that blew over anyway. Changed the channel or something. It's still around. Yeah, we're still slated somewhere along the line to do something. Yeah. But who knows? Well, that's my cool. This intro is too long. But yeah, the Kal Kat show had a great run of 7 seasons. Continued for another 4, and it's now would be in the 12th. But yeah, it's officially ended in 2015. And yeah, that one. Kal Kat show. And of course, the video reviews channel, which is the main one, which has all the other stuff. This is going to go on the smaller one that only has 300 and some videos. This puts the larger one with 700 and some videos. It's because, you know. Because I want the smaller one to grow up again. Yeah, the state of Star Trek. Ooh, I can't wait to go and study some of this. I would go and read on some of these story arcs here. Shipping fiction, Transformers, and gender equity. Yes. Oh, no. The year before that shipping story, I told you that I knew of MC Kim, or MC, who had done those, CM, who had done those stories. And then the next year over, she figured out that it must be actually that I know them. In other words, that's me. One of the people that did. I wasn't the only one. And yeah, she's all, it was you, wasn't it? You're CM, weren't you? Only because I knew like intimate details of scenes from it. No one else, only the author would remember them. Like it was all like, well, there was this one scene where Odo made himself into Kai Wynn so that he could have intimacy with Kira, and then change himself into some holy relic in order to like get to her. And she's like, yeah, you must have written that because no one else would remember that. Yep. I helped you write that. Mark's card scene. Actually, that would have been a Mark's card scene. But yeah. No, I think actually he thought of the name for the Holy Doodle of Kafar or something. Oh, yeah. Ew. Then there was another scene where there was a, what was it? There was a scene where it was a spoof of Star Trek First Contact where Wesley had like fucked with the food processor, and he like he messed with it so that Picard had the poops, see the runs, just because we thought it would be funny. Because yeah, bathroom humor. So instead of that scene where the Borg close in and there's like something in the bathroom and sticks on his face and he goes and then he wakes up. It's a dream. Instead of that, it's he's on the can and he's like straining like, oh god, no, number one, oh, I should go and no one's gone before. Ah, oh. Damn it, Wesley. Ah, oh, it's horrible. Ew. What is that?